Emily Investing Podcast, bright and early this morning. It's Easter. I'm probably going to get in trouble by my wife, but I'm super pumped about this conversation. How are you doing this morning, Frank?
I'm doing really, really good. I've had a great Easter morning. We had an Easter egg hunt in the front yard. I hope at least you and the kids and the wife did something that was Easter centric this morning.
Yes, we watched church on TV. We've done Easter baskets. I haven't eaten any candy, but the kids have, so we're living the good life. But we are joined by. Go ahead. You got Easter questions.
You watched church on TV? It's really
It's one of those COVID things where we tried to get a spot, but all the spots were taken, so we just had to watch. I don't know. We don't need it. It's a COVID environment. Anyways, super pumped about our guest today. Dave, please introduce yourself. Who the heck are you? We're excited to have you, man.
I'm Dave, and David Pere. My Easter today started about 7-8 minutes before we got on this call. I woke up and was like, "Yep, that was a good night's sleep for once, winning." So, no, I'm just my family already moved back because I'm getting out of the military. So I'm David Pere. I host the Military Millionaire community, which is like a whole bunch of random stuff about real estate because I got into real estate investing 5 years ago. And I had a lot of fun. And then I was like, I'm going to document my journey. And somehow people thought it was interesting enough that it kind of grew. And yeah, it's been fun. So I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to you. Let's jump right into it. Military to Millionaire. I think it's a great brand. I think it's got a lot of weight. If any of our listeners spend any time on social media, chances are they've seen some of your stuff. So tell us about it.
Yeah. So about 3.5 years ago, it's funny. It started with me actually wanting to write a book that has nothing to do with any of this. So I was going to write, when I was deployed, I kept a journal and a mission log. And so I was going to combine them and turn it into a book. And I was like, this is awesome. And then I realized nobody would would read it because nobody knows who the heck I am. And who wants to read the book on normal, boring dudes in Afghanistan? Everybody wants to read the Navy SEAL book. So I was like, all right, I need to find a way to have A, learn how to write, and B, get something of an audience that would actually read this book. So I was like, maybe I'll start a blog. And then I was like, I don't know what to start a blog about. And it just so happened that a friend of mine was over for dinner and he was like, why don't you just document what you're doing in real estate? You're learning a lot of stuff. It'll help you, it'll reinforce some of your learning. It'll probably force you to learn some things you wouldn't because you'll actually have to research to write about them. I was like, oh, okay. That sounds cool. And I didn't even come up with a name for the website. I came up with 10 different names. They all sucked. And a friend of mine was like, why don't you try Military Millionaire? And I was like, oh, that sounds catchy. The website, the domain is owned by, I still can't buy the freaking domain. Some guy owns that domain and does not respond to my emails trying to buy the domain. So I was like, all right, fine. So I was like, from Military to Millionaire, because it's about my journey. At the time I was nowhere near even close to being a millionaire. So I was like, all right, well, fine. I'll just document what I'm doing and that'll be that. And then now 3 years later, between the real estate and the platform and everything else that's going on, I'm in a spot where, I'm going to exit the military, go into the reserves, and I'm going to take this bad boy full time because I've completely replaced my income at this point. I would say I wouldn't necessarily say I'm financially free because some of because for one, the income amount that I want to receive to be financially free has grown since I reached where I was like, yeah, that could be comfortable, but there's a lot more possible. But also some of it's still active, right? I still do, I'm doing a little wholesaling and some wholetailing on the back end, just with properties that I wasn't going to tackle on my own, even though I'm more of a buy and hold guy. Right now I'm trying to wholesale 2 different deals because, we can get into this all later, but I got another big deal going on. And I'm like, all right, I need to focus on this. So yeah, the platform basically started as just kind of this way to document my journey. And it's morphed into actually a beneficial platform for service members and vets to come and, learn about real estate or finances or whatever. So it's been a good journey.
So to summarize, you started a blog, you evolved your real estate business, you've hit your your goal of being financially free, and now you want Lambo money, and you're starting to wholesale and flip houses. So
yeah,
so tell us about your real estate business. We'll talk about that one deal, but if you could tell us how you're finding the deals and how you're doing your marketing, that would be really, really awesome.
Yeah. So at this point, I think I technically have two different fronts I view as my real estate business, right? Because I am primarily a buy and hold guy. Like that's what I've done. I've got like 19 doors right now that I bought and I held and whatever, plus like a small partnership and a syndication that is so small that it's not even worth waiting on the K1 for taxes. So, it's cool to say I did it and like, oh, I'm a partner on these units, but not really. So, a small part of a whatever. And then, so buy and hold is normally my bread and butter. And for those, when I was building that, a lot of it was like, let me kind of turn on the marketing funnel, find a deal, turn off the marketing funnel. And that was either direct mail, networking, or just like really strict MLS, standards and like search requirements. And so when something popped up, I could, like when COVID happened in April, this duplex popped up on the market. I guess the landlord was kind of deciding to sell. And when everything happened, it spooked him. And this thing popped up on the market at like 93,000 for a duplex. And this is in Missouri, but and I was like, oh, that's $120,000 duplex. Let me just buy that real quick. And so, I just jumped on it, whatever. But then over the last 6 months, like my goal was always, hey, when you get ready to get out of the military, you're going to scale to where you're kind of more vertically integrated and or more of a marketing machine, and you can actually dominate your market. Because I just didn't want, with everything I had going on, I didn't really know what to do with if I grew a marketing business and had a million leads coming in. I was just like, I don't know how I could ever handle this. Which is kind of spot I'm in right now, where I'm like desperately working to find and hire the right acquisition guy, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't, like, I've got someone who looks at houses, but I need to make this much more official. But yeah, so about 6 months ago, I started scaling. And so I've been doing direct mail mainly, but I've done some text blasting. So those are kind of my two main avenues. I like the direct mail because I think a lot of it's kind of like everyone has their niche that they really like. And I think that in all of those niches, whether you're in texting, direct mail, or cold calling, they all work if you scale them enough. But I also think different markets are going to have like a different response. Like I'm in a market where if you pull a list, depending on which spot in the area you pull the list, you may still get like 20-30% landlines. So I'm like, all right, like I'd be doing texting and I'm like text blasting and it's like invalid number. And I'm like, son of a gun. Like now I got to pull them all down. And so I started doing both. I do a little direct mail here and a little text blasting there, but just more consistently, right? Like I think like probably sent out like 8,000 direct mails over the last 5 months, which isn't really a huge scale, but it's closed me 4 deals direct mail and 1 via texting. And so what I started doing was duplexes and my single families and I was trying to target landlords who are retiring, but a lot of those houses just made way better flips. Like the market's in such a weird spot right now where some of these would make great buy and holds, but if I can make $20,000 by just not even owning the thing and make it very quickly, like, all right, well, I'll take that. So I've done, a few wholesales. So I've done a few, like 7, I think so I did like 3 wholesales last month that all made like over 10 grand. And so it was like a $40,000 month net. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I should probably do more of this. And so my business right now is kind of like it's in this weird spot where it's like, I want to buy everything, but simultaneously, like this might make me $300 a month, but it'll also make me $15,000 right now with like little effort at all. And so I'm kind of doing both. There was a 7-unit deal that I was about to take down on my own. And then the one that I kind of mentioned popped up. So this guy, I almost don't want to speak about this because I'm still like worried that it's just going to fall through. We're supposed to sign everything tomorrow and be like completely, like we're supposed to hand over $100,000 lease option deposit tomorrow. And I think team and whatever. So he's like, I got to make money. And so he bought it for like $452. He's selling it to us for like $950 on that, that he would have to pay capital gains on. This hotel's probably going to be worth it. So like, whatever. Well, I've got some room here. He's like, he's taken down under so that he's like, as long as you close between kind of the creative part on that, he was open to seller financing on the enough. So I was going to try to take this thing down on my own. We were trying to structure it to where it was like, okay, I've got 150 that I'm rolling from a 10 unit I'm selling. So we seller finance and structure everything and I'll take it all down myself. just wasn't going to work out. He could carry on the hotel, but not the apartments. And I was like, well, I can get a 10% SBA loan, so I can buy the hotel, but not the apartments. So if you could sell her up anyway. So I ended up bringing in 2 partners, one of which owns a hotel 40 minutes south. And so I was like, hey, you walked this property for me with my property manager because I wanted a hotel, hoteliers, whatever that word is, experience. Do you want in? And he was like, absolutely. I've got $100,000 ready to go. Let's do it. I'm like, okay. And so I was like standing there. I was like on the phone with this guy in the kitchen. And I'm like, all right, cool. So if we can get 300, I can make this deal work with 3 people. And I was like, I just need to find someone else who's got $100,000 that I would want to be a business partner with. And my buddy John, who's living in one of my spare rooms right now, was like, well, I have $100,000. I'm like, oh, okay. So the 3 of us are going to go 33. And I was going to try, you talk all this weird stuff with like structure. I was going to try to hold 40% of the equity because I was like, well, I found it. I negotiated it. Like I brought the deal to the table. And I was kind of planning on like living, like using the hotel as my office for like the first 6 months when I get out to like turn it around. And my buddy Hugh, the guy who owns the hotel, was like on the call. He's like, hey, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but it's way better if like one person does operations. So I'd kind of appreciate it if you guys just stay the hell out of the hotel and I run everything. I was like, all right, we're 33 across the board, guys. Like if I can get into this thing and not touch it, it is, by all means. So it's kind of an interesting deal. We're going to be 33% partners and we're going to pay the management fee we would be paying to a manager. We're going to pay his team so that his team is, still able to support what they're doing. He gets something out of it, but so we'll pay that off the top. But yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing. So for the next, this is how nuts this is. This is a $950,000 purchase, right? For the next, whatever, we're apparently we're going to hand over the money tomorrow. So for the next 6 to 8 months, we will be interest only plus taxes and insurance. So our monthly payment will be $3,700 until we close it in like September. So that should give us a ton of wiggle room to turn this thing around and focus on operations in that first 3 months. And then, I mean, the crazy thing is that the 2 apartments in the single family we're buying at like, so one apartment's being purchased at a 10.8 cap and one's at an 11.4 cap. So like those apartments themselves would be a great deal. But we're just going to hand them over to management. So it's funny because we're like on this phone call talking about everything and we're buying them as 2 different things. And we're like, yeah, we're not worried about the apartments. Hotel. And like, it's just funny because it's like the apartments are a really solid deal too. But the hotel's has so much potential that we're like, all right, yeah, property manager will take those and we'll focus here. And like, I don't know. So yeah, it's crazy that assuming everything goes through, this one single family mailer is going to land like 79 doors that are all over like average over 11 cap. So we're buying the hotel. It's kind of hard to talk cap rate because it's like just now starting to break even. But if we change the expenses like we think we can and just did the same income as last month, we'd be buying it around like an 11 to 13 cap. But the income has a ton of room to run because he's just now starting to get rooms like fully occupied and he wasn't renting all 40 units. So, and they weren't really doing a whole lot of online marketing. Like they only got on Expedia like a month and a half ago. Most hotels, I don't know much about the hotel industry. I'm learning, but like most hotels, 80% of their business is online. Like the other 10, 20% is walk-in. This hotel last month did 360 bookings walk-in and 45 online. So assuming that we can just kind of crank this up where it's supposed to be and then rent the other 7 units out that weren't rented, it's kind of crazy when my buddy Hugh is talking numbers. I'm like, there's no way this is going to work out this well. But if it even works out half as well as he's talking, then could be Lambo money. So I don't know. We'll see.
Nice. Excellent. I think what I love most is this is a deal that's like win, 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 win for everyone. And I think a lot of times from the outside looking in, it looks like our space, this idea of, the secondary market in real estate. People think we're taking advantage of people or we're buying for pennies on the dollar and everyone's losing. And I think your story, this deal is a great example of the seller's happy. He's making money. You're happy. Your partners are happy. You're going to use some management companies to manage these assets. So it's a win-win-win. I love it. I'd love for you to talk about getting out of the military. That's a big decision. That's a most likely scary decision. It's something that a lot of people consider. It sounds like your story went from a side hustle to like, I think this is kind of real money and maybe potential to be a lot of real Lambo money as we stay on that theme. So can you talk to me about that decision?
Well, the decision was a lot harder a year ago when I kind of solidified it for the first time. So I started making, so the last time I reenlisted, which was 3.5 years ago at this point, 3.25 years ago, I was torn because, so my thing is the first time, like I'm not a combat MOS, right? But I would consider myself a combat Marine, meaning that, yes, I'm motor transportation, but like I came in at a time where motor transportation meant that I was driving through the desert with machine guns, looking for things that go boom in the desert. And so when I reenlisted the first time, it was right after a deployment. And I was like, send me back to the desert, beat my chest and shoot guns and stuff. Like that was what I wanted. And I tried out for Special Forces, blew my knee out, and ended up in the next best thing to Special Forces, recruiting duty. And so
that's a joke for you non-military people.
yeah, that's not even close. Although recruiting, it turns out, was way better for my life going forward because now I've learned how to sell and how to speak publicly and all that basic marketing stuff, whatever. But whatever. Special Forces would have been fun. So I come back, I get done with recruiting, I go back to the fleet, like normal Marine Corps, and I'm like, all right, cool, I'm gonna do some other cool stuff. And it was like, hey, deployments are gone. Like, okay, I knew we weren't at war anymore, but like, hey, also most field training, like most like of the cool stuff you would be doing. Like I was in an aviation unit, and then I finally got transferred over to like the division, like the infantry side. And I was like, here we go again. And in the 2 years I was there, I went on like 2 training ops, and one of them was a joke. And so I was really struggling with whether or not to stay in when I reenlisted the last time, because I was like, I'm just not like the fulfilling, exciting, adventurous part of the military is not there right now because we're not in combat. So there's not a whole lot of cool stuff going on. And then while I was in the debate of reenlisting or not, we had a night where we all got called into work, and like at 7:30 at night, it was like every staff and officer right now, don't care if you're wearing clothes, like show up. You will be here 30 minutes. Get here. And I thought for sure it was because like things were going kind of crazy with Korea during that time. So I thought for sure, like, this is it. Balloons going up. We're going to war. Like, and ended up not being that. In fact, it was probably like the least cool thing that ever could have happened, but whatever. It was one of those briefs where the colonel had just touched back on island and wasn't going to be there very long. So we had to get it in, even though it was, so yeah, not exciting. But I was in the process of reenlisting, and what I thought of as on the table, I was basically like, well, that was like super exciting to me. So if I don't reenlist, I'll never get a chance to deploy again. If I do reenlist, at least I still have the opportunity. All right, I'll go that way. And so real estate wasn't enough to carry me at that point, but I was thinking about trying to get out and take it full time, even though I wasn't at a point where I could do that. I was just going to build into it. But I reenlisted for all those reasons. And so over the last like 2.5 years, I've been like, none of this is happening. This isn't as exciting. And so my buddy, Doug Nordman, who's like a legend in the personal finance world for military guys, sat me down and told me like about the reserves. And he's like, I wish I'd known about this, like known more about this. He was a submarine dude for 20 years. And he's like, I wish I'd known more about this. I would have gone reserves after 12 years. And the whole idea of like not just gutting it out. And so the more I thought about it, the more I was like, man, if I'm not getting what I want, like fulfillment wise out of the military, the reserves is probably not a terrible option. You don't get your pension till you're 60. Your pension's smaller, but you still get the health care for affordable price. You still get a lot of the benefits. You're not throwing away the time you served, because I'll be at 13 years when my time ends. So I was like, all right, I do 7 years in the reserves, and then, I'm done, whatever. I still get the benefits. Like, and part of it, like my brand is based on like military. So I was like, I can't just quit, right? Like I kind of cornered myself into like, all right, I should at least finish, even if it's in the reserves. And so that was kind of but it's still been a very nerve-wracking decision from when I kind of started making it about 2 years ago after that conversation over coffee with Doug, to about 9 months ago, 6 months ago, where I was like, all right, like about a year ago, I was like, I think this is possible. Like, I think I'm at a spot where by the time I'm done, I won't, because my whole thing was, if I do this, I'm not working again. And so finally, about a year ago, I was like, I think this is possible. Like, I think I'm going to be able to walk and not have to work. Like, it might be a little bit of a struggle. whatever, but I'll be okay. And then over the last 6 months, things have just kind of started to grow. And now I'm at a point where I'm just like, oh my God, can I leave? Like, I am losing money here right now. This is bad. Like, so I'm finally at a point now where, like, I still love the Marine Corps, right? And I love if they were like, hey, balloons going, I don't know, it'd be a really tough decision because I would still, like, my adventurous heart would still be like, oh, this is it. All right. Like, how do we do this? But with that not going on right now, the decision comes down more to like, okay, how much time can I spend with my family? How much time can I spend with my kids, whatever. And like the reality is that I've replaced my income at this point. So I would much rather be able to say like, yeah, let's buy a 4-wheeler and go screw around on the farm than like, oh, I got to go to this brief. I'll be late tonight. So yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. It's not an easy decision. I think going into the reserves over just completely getting out is a good decision for someone in my shoes, but I also think that I've gotten to a point now where I don't even want to do that, but I just know that like, okay, I'm gonna be able to transfer my GI Bill, I'm gonna get the TRICARE benefits, I'm gonna finish, and I'll feel better at the end of the day that I finished instead of just walking away. So like I know it's the right decision from all those reasons, but like financially, I'm just like, man, I'm gonna be miserable during the time that I'm whatever. So I don't know, but it's an interesting decision. You're right. It's a very difficult one because service members tell you like, no, it's just 7 more years. You'll be fine. Like, yeah, but if it's 7 more years of like gutting out a job you don't enjoy, like there are other options. Just make sure that the other options that you're prepared for them, set yourself up for them. Don't just wing it. But
yeah. Yeah, every year is important, right? Like your 35th year is just as important as your 70th year, Like that's another way to look at it.
Maybe more.
Yeah, maybe, right? Actually, you never know. I was going to just ask a really simple question. If someone's a year out, maybe 2 years out from their exit date, they've already decided they're going to exit the service, and give me 1 or 2 bullets of advice that you would give them.
First, I would say is document all your medical stuff because people seem to, especially Marines, are like, oh, yeah, I'll just wait till like the last month because I don't want to go to medical because I'm tough. As a guy who didn't go to medical when he drove over an IED and lied and said like, yeah, no concussion, no issues, totally good because he didn't want to come off a mission. I can tell you that now that I have a hearing aid and a whole bunch of other stuff, it's very hard to tie that back into like, hey, 8 years ago this happened and I've lied about it. So just go to medical. It's good for you. It's the right thing to do for yourself. And if people think you're weak, like, so be it, you're getting out, like whatever, they'll struggle with their stuff later. So document whatever you got. Obviously don't, lie about stuff, but document whatever you've got. And then I would just say, be intentional about your plan. I would look at SkillBridge, which is a 6-month internship that you can take to work with another company. I'm looking to do that here in 2 months. And so SkillBridge allows you to intern on your way out. It's awesome. There's like a whole list of people you can do SkillBridge with, but you can also do SkillBridge with really any other company as long as your command is cool with it. Like, for example, I have somebody approved to do SkillBridge with my company starting in August. So they're going to come work with me for 6 months once they get closer to their EAS. So I think that internship is a huge opportunity. And then I would just say, actually like focus on your transition timeline. So take your transition seminar like actually a year or 2 early, not at the end, and actually do your stuff up front, and so that you control it. But also make sure that you have a purpose lined up for when you get out. I mean, the reason people struggle when they get out of the military is they have no purpose. They lose that identity. Like the I'm a Marine turns into like I'm Dave, and if you don't know who Dave is, that's not easy for people. Like I think that's psychologically the reason people struggle is they don't have a purpose. Like the military was their purpose, and the military might have been their identity too. And as a man, if you don't have those things, it's going to be rough. So I think that's part of the reason for the high suicide rate. So, make sure you're lined up, make sure you know what you're getting into. And I would also say contribute to your thrift savings plan because you're not going to be able to on the outside. And it's a really good plan. I'm a huge advocate for that, especially for younger guys. I have enough money in there right now. It's not anything crazy, but it's enough that I know like, hey, if for some reason my 10 unit doesn't sell, I can just pull my TSP and still buy this deal. And that's a nice feeling. But I also know that, hey, if I just leave that by the time I'm like 60, that'll be enough to pay, at just a 4% withdrawal, it'll probably pay me about $40,000 a year. or I can just leave it as a nest egg for my kids. So like, it's just nice to know that my retirement's set up, even if I mess everything else up.
Nice. I'm super impressed with the community you've built. And that leads me into, what do you think your superpower is? Like, what do you think you are world class at, or could be world class at? And I know I'm asking you to brag on yourself a little bit, but I think it's important, as we all look in the mirror, to try to align our skill set with what our kind of occupation, our professional goals are. And it seems to me like you're doing that because you're really good at it. So what's your superpower, Dave?
I would say networking. I would say that I'm a connector. I would also say that I'm going to be a much, for those of you who listen to this and you're like, that guy's a jerk, he's not either of those. I will be a lot better at that when I'm done. I've unfortunately, because of how busy I am, I've had to put a lot of, or some of that aside as far as how many phone calls I'm taking and stuff, because I just can't physically handle all of that. I haven't found out the right system to handle like group calls that actually like have a good rate of return. I think the key to building this platform has been like leveraging relationships with people and not going around. I don't mean like going up to people and being like, hey, I need you to do this, but just like leveraging the like, hey, who do you know that I need to know? Great. Hey, can I get an introduction to this person? Hey, let me introduce you to this awesome guy who'd be perfect for you. And adding value to people and, you know, whatever that may be, and just kind of staying on top of networking relationships and kind of getting my fingers into all kinds of different networks that I can talk to. And I think that's a skill set that a lot of which came from recruiting. I was always kind of a people person, but recruiting kind of helped me like develop that a little bit more. And then kind of calming down off being an arrogant prick when I was in high school also helped. So, yeah.
What do you know that you hate to do? What do you suck at?
Admin. Like, I'm actually okay at like admin stuff and system stuff. I just hate it. So like, if there's something like right now, I'm building out a CRM and I've written all the emails and I've done all the things, and I just need to like upload everything and solidify the actual CRM part. It's been like 3 weekends now that I've been like, yeah, I'm going to do that next weekend. And so, at this point, I've kind of just assumed that I'm going to push that off until I'm out of the military and then actually have a full day to work on it. I'm actually in the process. I have an ad out to hire a full-time executive assistant to handle a lot of that stuff, because I'm just like, I'll record a million videos and then they'll sit on my desktop until I finally get around to actually uploading them. So I just like that side of things. I am not the integrator personality.
Gotcha. So military millionaire, I imagine people ask you all the time, Dave, are you a millionaire? How do you answer that question? Or how do you talk about finances with people without just going like, hey, don't worry about my net worth. It's an awesome brand, but the idea is to build your own net worth. How do you talk about it?
Yeah. Well, first it depends on how well, I know the person. I'm very open with it. If it's somebody that I know, I had a conversation last night over dinner with someone where I told him like, this is exactly where I'm at. This is how much I brought in. These are the income streams, like whatever, because it's someone that I know and trust and I can share a win with, and whatever, and they'll give me feedback. The average person who asks me that, the answer is, look, the platform from Military to Millionaire was to start off to document my journey. When I started the said platform, my net worth was probably under $100,000. In fact, when I started that platform, it was probably less than that. I mean, in 2015, I had a negative net worth when I bought my first house. So, yeah, it's been a journey. I would say that it really depends on who you ask and how you skin the net worth. I would tell you that I'm not a millionaire yet as far as net worth goes, but I have plenty of friends who would take a look at what I've got going on in my portfolio, and they would claim that they're a millionaire based on however people decide to claim that crap. So I'm pretty strict about what I count towards my net worth. So, I mean, if you go by my standard, I'm about halfway there and growing much quicker every year. So I would say in the next year and a half, 2 years, shoot, if this deal goes the way it is, this deal will take me over that mark within the next 6 months. But I think it'll be within the next 2 years, I'll be there as far as my personal standards go. But I think I'll hit accreditation this year on income, so it'll be all right. So that's, I guess, how I would normally answer that to people. But I mean, I do definitely get, like, I've had somebody, my favorite one yet was, do you actually have $1 million in the bank? I'm like, dude, if I had $1 million in the bank, I'd be the dumbest millionaire there is. It's not how you play the game. And, because there are absolutely people, it's usually people I work with too, who kind of seem almost, I guess, threatened by the brand is a way to say it. So there have been some people who've been like very deliberately assholes about it. And I'm like, whatever. But there's also been a lot of people who are very, very cool. I've made some pretty interesting connections that like transcend rank in the military, where I'm like talking to people who, should be my boss about their personal finances and stuff. So
Go ahead, Frank. I think pause for a second there, but go ahead, Frank.
All good. I love that, man. I appreciate you being vulnerable with that response. That's actually really, really cool. I was going to ask, so what's next? We talked about your direct to seller marketing. We talked about military to millionaire. When you look at the second half of 2021, what changes do you want to see in your businesses before you get out? Like, what's going to make you feel good in 2022?
Kind of a new stretch goal is that I might hit 100 units that I can claim ownership to. I don't claim the syndication part because I'm like less than a percentage owner. And I love when people do claim that, and I get to chuckle about it. Like, oh, you have 1,000 doors, huh? That's cool.
That's as bad as That's about as the people in real estate that claim revenue number as the actual like sale price. Like they sell a $400,000 house, so like we did $400,000 worth of business. Like I wouldn't consider that, but go for it.
Yeah, and like all the checks you see online, a lot of those checks are cash to seller on the HUD, and the hard money lender is not included, or the private lender is not included in the transaction. It's like $60,000 wholesale fees for anyone that's listening. They're uncommon. They're not common, right? Most fees are between $10,000 and $20,000. It is what it is.
Yeah, if you've seen any of my TikTok videos, you've probably seen me holding up checks and saying, this is actually only this amount. Like, contrary to popular belief and teaching, like this $37,000 check is like 15, which is still awesome, but it's not $37,000. Like, I have 20 grand in this deal, or whatever.
To clarify, they exist, but it's going to take 20 to 40 regular checks to get the massive check. That's typically how it works, right?
Yeah, it's totally out there, but yeah, I agree. I don't remember what the actual question was.
2022.
Yeah. And it's a good question. So it's crazy because this whole thing started over the last 3 years. So people are like, what's your next 5 years look like? And I'm like, I have no freaking clue. Like, if you'd asked me 3 years ago where this business would be, I wouldn't have told you where it is now. So how do I know what 5 years from now is going to look like? So, but when I go into 2022, it'd be cool to stretch goal, hit 100 doors. Because if we buy this 79, that'll put me like right at or right around 90. So it's like, I'm kind of at this point now where I'm like, if I could hit 100 before I EAS, that'd be pretty sweet. But they got to be the right deals. I think just my main stretch goal at this point is to transition smoothly, never have to work another W-2, and be able to kind of focus on rebuilding my, taking over time with my family and stuff, and kind of have time to sit down and figure out where it is. So my goal, I guess at this point, I'm running like 3 businesses that all do okay. So I'll hopefully by the end of 2021, I'll have an actual executive assistant, and I'll have an actual like, I say actual acquisitions manager, but like realistically, I'll be on the ground, and I kind of enjoy that part. So I might be my acquisitions manager for a little bit because I feel like that part's kind of fun. So we'll see. I'll probably hire someone, but I'd like to think I'll probably have those 2 positions filled, and I'll be able to focus a lot more on content and teaching and like kind of showcasing my journey. My actual content will be a lot more like going in houses and physically showing things instead of like standing right here and talking about stuff. And my goal is ultimately that the online platform and the wholesale business are able to fund my buy and holds and allow me to, take that money and, travel and hang out with friends and see the world and do all the things that I've wanted to do over the last year, but between the military and COVID have not been able to do. So, yeah.
Excellent. So last question will be, where can people find you? And I want to hear all about your mastermind too. So please plug yourself. But I'm going to do our own commercial ad hoc at the moment. I didn't tell Frank about this, but 2021, the market is crazy and we are buying deals like crazy. What does that mean for any of our listeners out there? That means if you have a deal that you think we might be interested in, I want you to send it to our deal inbox, which is deals@graylineinvestments.com. We are primarily a wholesaling company, but we're doing more and more flips all the time. And when this red hot market is hitting us right now, we are going to the wholesale and flipping model like crazy. So deals@graylineinvestments.com. Send it to us. We want to be your cash buyer. Ideally, a city with 10,000 or more people. Ideally, Texas in the Southeast. But we will buy anywhere. So David, tell us about your Facebook group. Tell us about your masterminds, free and paid. Let's hear all about them.
Yeah, so the easiest place to get a hold of me is from militarytomillionaire.com, or the Facebook group is the Military Millionaire group, or Instagram from Military to Millionaire. Like you can reach out to me on all of those. We have a mastermind, a paid mastermind group for service members, veterans who are interested in it started out as just like business in general, but every single person who's joined has been real estate. So definitely a real estate focused mastermind with over 100 people now that are we vet everybody. They're all service members and vets. So, we really like the fact that community is a group of people who can just instantly connect and relate. And it's crazy because we got people all over the freaking world. We jump on, like Frank laughed because we did, he came and spoke at one of our calls and it was at like 5 a.m. on a Saturday. And he's like, what in the world? I'm like, well, yeah, but we've got people in like Europe, Japan, Hawaii, like, we had to start doing Zulu time for when groups could, it was kind of crazy. So, so I mean, that's cool. That's there. It's, it was really just, I wanted to help build a community of people that I wanted to be around. But most of my stuff is totally free content, YouTube, whatever, that I'm just out there pushing to help people out. And then I will plug, I have a book that the pre-order page should be done this week. It launches June 1st. So it's the No BS Guide to Military Life. And it's basically everything I wish I'd known about career, finances, and personal development before I joined the military. So been about a year and a half in the making. It's not like a little pamphlet book. It's like a legitimate, like 260 page. I just ordered like 100 hard copies so I could like go thwack and be like, yes, it sounds like a real book. And I paid an editor, so it's even written more better than more better than a Marine would do. So
that's the perfect sentence. It's written more better because of my
that's it, right? So not all crayon. So yeah, that'll come out June 1st. Pre-order should be up by the time this podcast launches, and I'm super stoked about that for sure. So if you go to my website, you'll see it there, and hopefully it helps out some service members. Essentially, sounds really weird to say do what I did, but I'm at that spot now where I guess I can say that, but do it faster and do it better, because I learned everything the hard way. I am Bigger Pockets just released an episode with me, and the title was "The Guy Who Did It All Wrong and Still Figured It Out." And that's basically my life. So
excellent. The one question I don't think we ever brought up is what market are you doing deals in, if anyone is in that market?
Make me try to blow up my own market here.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
Southwest Missouri. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I've done pretty much deals all over Missouri, and then the syndication was in North Carolina. And then I partnered on a flip in Hawaii, and I've done a little bit of stuff elsewhere, but most of my stuff is in Southwest Missouri. Not necessarily, I mean, the market's great and all, but not really because of the market, just so much as I was a recruiter there, and I have like my wife's family's there, so I plan on moving back. So it's like one of those things where it's like, it's an okay market. There's a whole lot of metrics people don't like crime rate and stuff, but I know people, so I just kind of stuck with it. So
gotcha. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Dave. We really appreciate it. And I don't think we said this, but you've also got an awesome podcast that Frank and I were guests on a few months ago, and really, really well established. I think you're 140, 150 episodes, something like that now.
Yeah, I think we're right around 140.
That's awesome. Good for you. So everyone have a wonderful weekend, wonderful week whenever you listen to it. Any final words, Frank?
No, I think you said it all, man. Have a good Easter. Enjoy the time with the family.